probably the best part about it.
We use Teams at work, so it's
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, the
We need two case.
you got okay. So the hospital I work at uses Teams and it pops up every time I like log into a computer. And I'm not going into a meeting with anybody, period. I don't get paid to do meetings. But it like people like the office workers, like the people who don't fucking do like who are like, "Oh, I'm so look how important I am because I do this one little thing."
So
Uh
me. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, like David, let me tell you, I have a problem with
For my
staff.
last meeting.
Yeah, I've done that, but let me tell you, I have a problem with staff, whether that was when I was in the army or when I was not in the army. Like, hey, you know who doesn't make any money or even like talk to a patient, or in the case of the army, like shoot bad people or whatever you want to do there, right? It's fucking staff, but they think that they're so fucking important. They're like, oh God, we got if we don't account for these beans over here, which I need you to count because I possibly couldn't just make a fucking guess. Sorry, I'm gonna go off on a fucking tangent here.
Fine.
Then like,
Me.
then I fucking can't do my fucking menial job and make this PowerPoint. Like, fuck you, dude. That dude, I've told that dude in so many office meetings to eat my ass. Like, and because in the army you can just say that it's not a big deal.
I
Um,
went to school for these Pareto charts, Eric. I need your
oh my
beans,
god.
please. The PowerPoint will not be complete
The
without them.
logistics people are like the logistics and the intelligence guys are just the fucking worst. Uh, at like in the
wait till you
hospital,
meet
it's
wait till you meet an engineer because I can give you a run for your money on self-importance.
I've met some naval engineers, and I was actually they were pretty decent people. I'm gonna be honest. I was like they told me some things that kept me from like breaking some things. I was like, okay, cool. I understand your importance. Thank you for not letting me like basically like kill myself. So there is some
Safety
news.
first.
Yep. Okay. I'll save the rest of that for after this cast about how much I fucking hate staff.
We are casting the pod.
Okay. We're here to talk about Rug Aggro. What do we want to call it? Rug Zoo.
I mean,
I guess that's probably the best overarching label for it.
Okay. I'm gonna share. I downloaded all the photos you sent me, and I'm gonna share that screen. I just kind of want to talk through like what you think the base parts of the deck are, and then David, I want to talk about your deck because you did really well at the Twisters event as well. But like, in
yeah,
case
but
I know,
that deck. I would rather hear Casey talk rug tempo than me mashing three different types together to
well,
try.
that's what I want to get to the bottom of is like, what do you think like the base of this deck is, and then what do you think like the flex slots are? Because I think it's pretty tight, but it's. I mean, I've seen you sent me like 6 or 8 deck lists, so.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let me see. I do this every time. I still can't figure it out.
Yeah. Depending
Share.
on what's up first, we could go a couple of different ways.
I think I
But
just did them in sequential order.
okay.
So this one. Okay, that should be. You should now be looking at recent
Got it.
A2A New York Zoo. Okay.
All right. So for those viewers, listeners that don't know, we here down in Nashville have started a format called Alpha to Alliances. And it is, it does what it says on the tin. Um, we didn't want to go all the way to Mirage with 1996 because Mirage changes the game pretty significantly. So we added alliances to kind of complete the Ice Age block because it has the same feel as Ice Age and Homelands, and it has the same vibe, and the card designs they flow pretty well. So that is what this is. This is why you don't recognize some of the cards. But what this is at its heart is a rug aggro deck. And there are some different choices made here than in a 93, 94 rug deck. So chief among them, main deck Black Vice. I guess I'm hitting the weird flex slots first, but main deck Black Vice is Alpha to Alliance's tech, I'll suppose. Land tax is really good in Alpha to Alliances. There's a lot of card advantage through Necropotence, obviously. So Alpha to Alliances needs a lot of burn and a lot of ways to kind of take the gas out of a Necro deck. So Black Vice is one. The card next to it is Gorilla Shaman. affectionately known as Mox Monkey. If you don't know, his ability is pay 1, pay X, and pay X again to destroy target non-creature artifact with casting cost X. So if you want to destroy Zuran Orb, it costs 1. If you want to destroy an Ivory Tower, it costs 3. At some point, I think I paid 7 mana to kill some 3 mana artifact, but I don't remember what that was, and that's not what this is for. It's used to eat Moxen. So anyway, the rest of this stuff should be really familiar. And at its heart, I'll go into kind of the weaknesses of this deck a little later, but this specific deck anyway. But at its heart, you have creatures that are beating the curve in Serendibity and Urnamgen. So you pay 3 mana and you get a 3 power something with something else added on to it, flying in this case. Urnamgen, you pay your 4 mana and you get a 4 power, 5 toughness creature. With a drawback, but it's only relevant sometime. So that's your creature base. The reason those are here is because I was hedging against Bolt decks, which was a good call because the event that I played this in, there were a lot of Bolt decks running around.
You also have Incinerate in Alpha Day Alliances, right, Case? And that is a highly played card, right? Yeah.
That's what's off here to the left-hand side.
Right.
Yeah. Do you think the main deck Pyroblast is like? Do you think that was a good call? Because just how much? No, not because it counterburn. That's what I said it was there for.
I remember watching a video, probably 2019, where it was, I think, Steve Menindian going through his card choices in a Rug Zoo list for Swedish, old school, and he ran a main deck Pyroblast, I think. And I don't think that's out of the question, but that was a choice that I made just because I play 61 cards, and I was just like, you know what? I'm hedging against other Serendibity, Force of Will for whatever reason I need, power, whatever. So if I wanted to streamline it, I'd drop that for another Urnam.
Okay.
Which is what I did on the Guildhouse Discord online event. I played this, and no Pyroblast, 4th Urnam was the only change. So going back into it, Ice Age brings Incinerate to the forefront. So you have 9 red spells that do 3 damage. I'm sorry, not 9. You have 3. So you have 12 slots that you could potentially use for 3 damage burn spells. I didn't go all out here with Chain Lightnings just because instant speed is pretty stout. You'll see the addition of white here, 2 disenchant and a balance main, and then the other 2 disenchants in the sideboard. And we've got 4 strip mines here, along with the black duo of Demonic Tutor and Mind Twist. So what all this is not my invention. I net decked the hell out of this thing. In all of our research, I guess, for Alpha 2 Alliances, there are a lot of good articles on the dojo if you can find them in the Internet Archive.
Yes,
going down
you got to dig on that one.
You really do. And I always lose my place. I was like, where was it that I saw that sweet deck list with the one whatever? And I never can ever find it. But this came from a rundown of how the zoo list evolved over 1996, 1997. And the one that they posted was a list where Mirage had come out. And so Mirage was firmly in play. It was like 1996 Worlds or something like that. But the problem is those decks ran off Mystical Tutor. They usually played 2. And those 2 Mystical Tutors were used to get a 1-of Disenchant or your 1-of Balance or almost always your Time Twister, so that you could have a lot more consistency in your game plan of twisting or wheeling your opponent into more vice damage. Here, that's not possible because, it's not 96, it's Alpha Alliances. And so this performed well, and I won our Alpha Alliances event with it, but I did not do that on the Guildhouse event. What I've noticed here is that it just has a lot of variance.
Sure.
A lot more than normal. And part of that is it being 5 color. I think part of that is Black Vice just not doing a whole ton. In the main deck, you can steal a game 1, or you can shore up a game 2 or 3. But sometimes all 4 of them come out.
Well, that you need to know that Pox, if you're playing the Guildhouse Alpha through Alliances, you're going to play at least 1 game of Pox.
I got wrecked by 2 Pox decks.
Yeah, I can't remember their names, but I knew, like, I played the one maybe 2 months before you, and I was like, I'm going to play a bunch of Pox. I played 2 Pox decks as well. So yes, I understand. Like, the Black Vice might not have been great for that.
But if you walk into a room full of Necro or control builds based off of just classic the deck archetypes or things that are using browse, then you're going to be in good shape, I think.
Yeah. Casey, I've got a question. Here it looks like you're eschewing like basically all counter magic except for a main deck Pyroblast in favor of a more aggressive strategy. Is that just because of the A to A variance, or is that a conscious choice that you made in this specific list, or was that because of the A to A meta? Because when I think of the traditional EC rug list, sometimes they're running anywhere between 3 to 6 counter spells, and here we have none. I wanted to see how you liked that, if not, and if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and this will become apparent as we get like to, I guess, the last 2 pictures that I posted that you may have in your slide. I think there are 2 builds of rug. Actually, there are more than that. But if you want to talk about like the barest of essentials, the barest essentials are 4 Kurt Apes, 4 Serendibs, 3 or 4 Urnum Gens. And then you have anywhere between 8 to 12 burn spells. And then you have the rest of the deck to pretty much just make up what's left. And you can go 2 directions. You can go more tempo, where you have main deck removal in the form of Shatter. You have main deck counter spells or Power Sink or something similar. Or, and you rely on 4 strip mines for your mana disruption. I mean, I think that's a really big, important point, is EC allows you to play the tempo game with 4 strip mines. On the flip side of the coin, the rest of the deck outside of that core can become a straight up burn deck, which is what we're looking at here. So this is something that I'm going to try in, at the end of the month at the Legends event. And this is something that I've seen a lot in Europe. I think the Italians really like this build. I think they call it Quicksilver. So it's only playing a mana drain for its counter. It is playing 4 bolts, 4 chains. Sometimes I see 3 Psyblasts, sometimes I see 4. I opted to drop 1 and go with a Fireball. And then you have your 12 Arabian creatures, and then I opted for 4 Argothian pixies just because they're so dope. And I'm playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colorless lands. Here you want consistency in color. So I dropped to 3 strip mines because I'm not necessarily playing a tempo game.
I know.
And then
Sure.
and I don't know if that's right or not. This is a test. This is just an experiment.
Yeah. I think that's a good question, Casey, is like, what's your mix of Mishra's Workshop versus strips versus library in Rug Zoo? I've certainly got builds where I've played like a complete tempo game where I didn't play the pixies or the 2 slots and went up to 4 Mishras, 1 strip, even in EC, just because of the bodies and to get a better game against, a Wrath of God deck. I know sacrilege, Eric. I didn't start with 4 strip.
Look,
but
it's 4 fucking strips, 1 Chaos Orb, the rest are flex slots. Like,
yeah.
We've been over this. Yeah.
Been over it many times.
I want to talk about Chain Lightning, Casey.
Yeah.
What is the thought process? Is it just, look, I'm going to be so tight on my land that the times that the red and X is going to be better at sorcery speed are so few, I believe that I'm better off with the efficient Chain Lightning approach. Because when I see these lists that have mana drain in them, and then they're playing 4 Chain Lightning, I'm like, why? Like, why wouldn't you just have the fringe case where Disintegrate's better against the trolls, like Eric and I covered, or be able to dump mana from a mana drain into an X spell, over Chain Lightning. I struggle with builds that are on 4 Chain Lightning and 0 X, but just personally from my deck building style, what is it that drives you to say, look, that's going to be much better for me?
So that's actually a good point, and that's the line of thought that led me to dropping a Psionic Blast for the Fireball. I haven't really run that down yet. I'm a pretty rigid case when it comes to like what other people run and like what I consider typical and what might be kind of pretty far afield. And I don't always gravitate towards those lists with multiple X spells, even though there are cases where a mana drain into one is going to win you the game. The simplest explanation for 4 Chain Lightning is here you want to be efficient with your mana and you want to have good removal to allow your threats through. And sometimes you only want to spend 1 mana to kill a 2/2 or something, despite having, a Fireball where you have to really pump more into it. And then you don't have that extra 2 mana just in case. Yeah. Like there are a lot of corner cases where this matters, I think, but
post wheel and twister.
The simplest reason is it's 4 more cards that do 3 damage and only cost 1.
Yeah, post wheel, post twister, more likely that you can pull it off on the same turn that you have to do those sorceries. So I could see it. I just, I'm a big burn guy, so
we know. Oh my God, we know.
And that's another way that you can take the deck. You can take it into a channel, mana drain, Fireball, Disintegrate area. And that's not something I've ever done. I did run channel Fireball the first time in Rug, but it's not out of the question. It's very viable. To go back to the question of like how many colorless lands I run.
Yeah.
It always fluctuates.
Always. Really? This is what I struggle with the most.
Yeah, same. So, I mean, EC is so rough because there are 4 strips. You have to rely on colored mana, or you have to plan your deck to where you can't get caught out after you've taken an aggressive strip. So that's why you see 3 City Brass here and 12 duels. And so let's see, what is this? 12, 18. So 21 lands total. I really don't want to go beyond that. You could consider the factories as creatures. I think in the past I've run four strip, four factory, and I think what that meant was that I didn't have Argothian Pixies in the deck.
That's what I was gonna think. I think it's like for me, if I was doing this like clean slate, it's either factories or Argothian Pixies. You know what I mean? But I would also have played the 4 strip and put in the 4 factories and just either Pixies in the side or Shatters. I don't know, some Shatters in the main or some shit.
Yeah. With this, I'm kind of opting for like I want my land drops to make colored mana, and I don't
Right.
want my land drop to be a creature. And if I'm going to play a creature, having it be immune to factories is pretty neat. So that's kind of my thought on it.
What's the
Yeah,
minimum number of creatures that you guys think you can pull off in Rogue?
What's the what number?
Minimum number of creatures. Like if you were to go for the more counter burn type of build, like I would say that you can't go below 4 Curd Ape, 4 Dibs, and eat some 4 mix of something else. Like you would want at least 12 creatures to get in there. But that's
I think
kind of
that's
my own
right.
personal.
So one last thing on this deck is it's a burn deck up front, but you have a lot of interactive tools in the side. You have your shatters and your energy fluxes, and then you have 5 counter spells that come in for certain matches, and then you have other tempo swings in control magic. And I'm trying the Whirling Dervishes just because I really like that card. But the previous one is the previous list is a counter list, and it's a little different. Yeah, this one. So this one's running 4 strips. That one is relying on strip as a tempo play that just like it can kind of close the door sometimes. Still running 2 factories. I mean, basically my thing here is I've done it this way in the past, but now I'm kind of opting to be tighter on lands. And so I really don't want to go above 8 colorless mana sources. So
yeah, that's fair.
As for like basic creatures, I mean, here in this more counter heavy tempo list, it's what's this, 15? Not counting the factories. I think the minimum is 12, but I would want some permanent form of damage above that. 14 or 15 is probably where I'd stop.
That's what I was gonna say. I think it's the answers between 12 and 16, and it depends on what the second part of your deck is trying to do, right? Whether you're trying to be tempo or you're trying to burn out.
I agree with you guys. What about the counterspell choices, Casey? Here you've got a split of 2 and 2 on Power Sync and Counterspell. I see a lot of dudes playing 4 counterspells, and I often wonder, like, if they might benefit from getting the spell, like a Singleton Spell Blast to get the wins on the Wars game 1, or Power Sync.
Force Spike.
Or Force Spike. Force
motherfucking Force Spike.
If 4 strips, I would drop a Crumble and rock a Force Spike in this list, Casey. I could definitely see something spicy like that out of my builds, but I wanted to hear what went into your choices of counter spells.
Yeah, so I mean, part of it is the fact that I think I only own 2 CE counter spells, and I just have never bothered getting any more.
Yes, classically good answer. That's why I play a lot of my sticks.
Okay. But like I have a 5-inch tall stack of proxies next to me right here. They're all
the same
fake.
page.
So like why am I bothering not getting any more counterspells? Like, I don't know. I just never felt like going deep on counterspells. Now, this deck is fashioned sort of on the list that Jaco put together in like 2017 and posted on the Eternal Central website. Mm-hmm. So it's based kind of on that. I think he went 3 counterspell, 1 power sync. Historically, I've run decks like an Armageddon deck that I piloted to 5th at the last Players Ball, and it ran 2 power syncs in it. It didn't. I don't think it played counterspell, and I just kind of like the power sync play. Sometimes you can get it. I think the deck is probably more correct with counterspells, but the other justification I'm using is Power Sync costs 1 blue,
Yeah.
and counterspell doesn't.
You can keep them off of a Mox, right? Like if they're all tapped out, that's a fun little corner case that I like. Can we talk about library? Because I got beat up pretty bad for playing library in my Earn 'em Get 'em deck by Eric, I think last
Which-
podcast,
Yeah,
right?
because
Which library?
Library of
Library of
Alexandria.
Alexandria.
We can talk about the other one too, because I have questions. But
Because they're both wrong. Like, okay, hear me out. Are you trying to hold cards in your hand and like accrue card advantage, or are you trying to put turn creature sideways and throw a burn at face? Like, I don't see how the library works with that idea.
My defense case, to recap, was there are times when you're post 7 draw 7 where you want to get like one more chance to get a burn spell to finish it out. And it doesn't happen very often, but it happens enough. Or you fan it in the opening thing and it's like, then you're just on cheat mode,
I do think I think there's more of an argument when you play Rug because you have access now to Ancestral Recall. You know what I mean? Like you can draw more cards when you splash the blue.
That's true.
So I think it's
I wouldn't.
and you have
I wouldn't
time
play
twisters.
library. Yeah, I wouldn't play a Library of Alexandria in a deck that didn't have power. Honestly,
That's yeah. I agree with that. I still think it like the nice thing about library, and I think it's probably a mistake from card building design, is like it also taps for a colorless, so it does help you cast. If you don't have 7, it will help cast other cards.
Yeah.
And in a 4-strip environment, like you're then taxing your opponent's strip mines. Like they got to they're either stripping factories or stripping library. Like there's like everybody can complain about 4 strips, but honestly, there's a lot of pressure put on those 4 strips to handle a bunch of different lands. Not
There
like
are,
Maze of Ith,
so-
etc. But
yeah. So you basically just talked me into the fact that library is right in here and in the other build, because I kind of agonized over like, do I want the 4th strip in the burn build, or do I want the 3rd factory in the tempo build? And quite honestly, I don't think library is wrong in either of these, but I kind of wonder, okay, what else could it be? But then I fan out my opening 7 and I've got, library, 2 other lands, 4 business spells. And that honestly is not necessarily the autopilot opener that you think it might be, because the tension that I have is Taiga, Kirdape, turn 2, Tropical Island, Pixie, swing for 2, turn 3, play your dib, and you're just like losing card after card. And if you've got a library up front, you've really got to slow it down. You've got to take a turn off to play your library, and then you draw your card off library again. And so you're up 1, but only now are you playing Taiga Kirdape, and you still have to let the library do its thing after you've taken turn 1 off.
Yep.
And I think you can get away with that most times. And
you end up holding Mox in a lot, and it feels awkward, but it's like it's clearly right, because it's like a one-sided Howling Mine, and then you end up with 7 burn spells to finish the game on turn 4 or 5. But it does feel weird, Casey.
And then sometimes you hold your Moxen, and or you're like, you need to play your Moxen instead of a land because you want the right color, because it's a troublesome mana base, and then you draw off your library, and now you've drawn like a Power Sink, and you're like, I have passed already, and I don't have an extra land in play, and the Power Sink is balling me. So there's a lot of, I mean, honestly, it's inherent with old school in general. It's like there's just a lot of inherent variance in all of these decisions. And honestly, as an anxious person, I could agonize over these card 59, card 60, card 61 choices until the cows come home. And once I get tired of this list, I'll make another one. Won't have library in it. Play it a few times. Miss library. Go back to this. Make some other change. You know.
Yeah. I have no defense for Sylvan Library. I see a lot of rug tempo lists, Eric and Casey, that have like 1 to 2 Sylvan Library in it, and I'm like, what is like? Again, I feel like that is the same gripe that we had last time, Eric. So I'm not going to sit here and defend Sylvan Library.
It doesn't do anything.
It should be Psionic Blast or a burn spell or a counter spell off the top if that's your preference, or a creature for beads. Like
that is where I have fallen on the issue. However, let me defend one of the most beautiful. Let me defend one of the most beautiful green cards ever printed. I can see it because I think Jaco's list played like 2 or 3. I see 1 a lot in the Quicksilver lists or just other rug tempo lists out of Europe. I don't like 1, but I think 2 is too many. I'm not sure. But the purpose of it is you play it and you have potential for card advantage. And you also have card selection if you're not opting to use it for card advantage. So you get your Urnum Djinn plowed, you can get that card back with a Sylvan. If you get, if you get a couple of stinkers on top of your deck and you need the one that's down below that, you just take that one, and so you're just looking 3 ahead all time.
But you're not. It's only the first time you play it that you look 3 ahead, and then you're just looking at 1.
Right, you're true. That's correct. You're right. And then you can bank on getting like your Urnum plowed so that you can clear one of them.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think here's a spicy take: play natural selection instead.
I'm going to have to look up the Oracle text to see if that's right.
It's just like green. It's just green. Visions. It's a poor man's vision. It's fine. It's a green brainstorm.
It's fine. I don't think it does all of that. So look at the top 3 of any player's library. You can rearrange the cards or shuffle. Okay, so it's better than
a shuffle effect. And so actually, if you played it alongside Sylvan,
it would be much better. But that's what my problem is like, all right, Sylvan costs 2 mana, and then the next turn, you get to look at 3 cards. And then the turn after that, you're back to looking at 1. Sure, you get to move them around, but I don't know if that's worth it.
I would say that it might be, to your point, Casey, about European lists, like in a Swedish format that's just about a half a turn or a turn slower, it might be worth it to invest in something like that. But I wouldn't rock it in a 4-strip environment where you're facing off against Dibbatog and things like that. It just seems like I would rather have threat density, to Eric's point. But
yeah,
I wanted to kind of hear the defense.
That's how I opted here, and I also think that seeing 1 new card after every Eric, to what you're saying, you are only seeing 3 cards the first time. Every time after, you're seeing 1, but through those subsequent turns, the game state can change to where those 2 that you're continuously putting back on top could become relevant at some point.
Maybe. Yes, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that statement.
But I do agree with you, and that's why you haven't seen a Sylvan Library in any of the 3 lists that I've made that you've seen so far.
I think if you're playing Library and you have Sylvan, like there's probably an argument there, right? Because you are getting really to look at 2 new cards after you play it per turn, because you're going to draw, then draw again, right? Like,
yes, Casey, thank you for defending a choice of a card you didn't.
Oh my God,
we appreciate it.
Here's what I really need you to defend: these 2 crumbles. Over.
I was just about to talk about that.
Okay, please defend this.
Let me tell you. What if I told you it was Swords to Plowshares for artifacts?
Yeah, but why not just play Terror for artifacts and just play Shatters?
Because there's no black elemental blast.
Okay.
A Shatter's going to get blue blasted, and a Crumble isn't. And no one is Chad enough to just run a lot of flash counters. Not yet, at least. One of these days, I'll be in it. But
why not Scavenger Folk? I'll get to why I'm asking these questions.
Input.
It's actually for my own personal benefit, but why not Scavenger Folk? And
No, that's fine. I am again a slavishly traditional person when it comes to some of these like named builds. I am
Okay.
not a very spicy innovator. I am not one that steps pretty far afield of what's standard. So Scavenger Folk just feels, you know?
Okay. All right.
He does have 2 main deck artifact removal though, which was something we were talking about it last week, Eric, is like how
Yeah.
many main deck artifact removal do you go? I have a question about the sideboard. If it's an
Well,
appropriate
before we
time.
move there, I think
Okay.
that I agonize over how many main deck artifact removal you
Do
need.
you?
So
Okay.
here there's 2, and I think you need 2 main deck in the tempo build. There's probably an argument for 3, but at that point I think you're dropping a counterspell or something.
Right.
In the burn list, there's an argument to be made that you play 1 shatter or something, like just shatter probably. But with the crumble being present here, it is a free 1 mana destroy target Mistress Factory. Same thing for Moxen. I don't like being wasteful. If I'm going to kill a Savannah Lion, I would rather kill it with a Psychic Purge than with a Psionic Blast, you know? That
Yes.
doesn't matter.
Are you really targeting
doesn't.
Moxes? And I understand targeting factories 100%.
Yeah.
But are you really going to start hitting people's Moxes?
It depends on like game state and like how things are going. Like if they seem like they're on blue and they've only got a sapphire, and you know, maybe that's worth hitting. I don't know. It's all very dependent on what's going on, but it's another efficient way of hitting people's mana. And I think, to the point about Scavenger Folk, Crumble, you're able to more easily do that than with Scavenger Folk because you have to wait a turn for the Folk.
Yeah, it's an extra turn, no doubt.
Yeah.
That's why we'll get to it. I'll ask you after we're done recording. I'm trying to get ready for something. I don't know. I'm waffling. We are doing the same thing. I'm waffling over card 58 or 59 and 60.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'll talk to you guys about it afterwards. It's fine.
Just play 62. Don't worry about it.
No, it's so bad. I've looked at the numbers.
But
Casey,
61 isn't statistically significantly more bad than 60.
Oh, really?
No, it definitely is. It definitely is.
I have to look at these charts again.
Yeah.
But I do play Scavenger Folk pretty often, Casey, because I'm running it next to, Pendelhaven often, or decks where I can, because I like the additional ability to do damage with my removal. So I'll defend Scavenging Folk, but I do get Crumble, but there's just, with my burn heavy builds, there's all these times where I feel like I'm passing turn. I've just given them, crumbling a Suchi that they got to sink into a factory. And now I'm suddenly giving them 4 life that I got to get back through another Urnum attack. And I feel like I just time walked myself, And so, I've bitched about, excuse me, I've complained about Crumble plenty and how it's burnt me. And so it's interesting to see what your ideas on it was. And instant speed matters for sure.
Yeah. And I honestly think that my choice comes down to, it's like what we were talking about with Chain Lightning and Fireball. It costs 1 mana.
It is definitely efficient.
You love the efficiency. Okay. Control Magic. When are you boarding that in? When are you not? Against what? I mean, against bigger creatures that you just can't hang with, or is it against mono black? When's the right time? Because I always have Control Magic and I'm like, That's while I have a better player here, Eric, I'm going to ask him.
Yeah,
like,
no,
when
way
do
better
you
player.
when do you do
Who is
control
that?
magic?
Is there some fourth person that's on our call?
No, but I do struggle with it. It's like big red. I guess I boarded in then, and it's like instead of the blue blast, like talk about some of your sideboarding choices for your matchups here, because I would love to number one learn, but I'm sure our audience would too. But I feel like sometimes I'm pulling the trigger like too much, boarding too much, as opposed to when I probably just need to run it out there and hope to kill them faster and let control magic sit in the board.
So this is distinct. I'm playing the control magic in the burn build as well, and the main justification for that is I kind of can't beat a Sarah Angel, and I kind of can't beat a Juzan Jin. So why not use them for my own purposes? And that's really all the justification there is. Here, though, this tempo build, I think its utility is increased because you have the ability to do what I said and steal a Sarah Angel or steal a Juzam or steal a Serendip Jin that someone else is playing. But really, there could be times when you're looking at a stalled board state and you have like a Kurt Ape and you don't have a Forest out and you've got a Pixies and across the table is 2 Savannah Lions. That would feel really bad if you're not holding burn, but it could be the tempo play that you need to make it happen. And I've control magicked opposing Serendib Afrits and doesn't it to allow mine to get through. And it, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but that is the theory behind the tempo play is you have these specific cards that are able to swing the game in your favor in these moments. That's why there's only 2 of them. And that's another argument for Sylvan Library for finding those things. But, for what you can't counter, for what you can't burn, why not just steal it?
Okay.
I can get behind that.
The rest of this stuff, I did want to shatter for the reason that you've stated. Sometimes you don't want to crumble a mirror universe. 3 energy flux is that's just the way to go.
Just hating out workshops completely, like forget them.
I mean, my meta, we don't really have a lot of workshop decks, even though we are a proxy.
What is this Magic Land?
We have a super weird meta. We're like hyper burn, but also deep within prison. And we have these hateful mid-range builds. We've got a weird meta. Like we do not do blue-red burn versus robots. That is not how we get down here in Nashville. But
a lot of shops on the West Coast. A lot of shops.
Must be nice.
And a lot of shops on the East Coast. You guys got to get out here into the Midwest and just be chill.
Just ignore those cards exist. Yeah.
Turning things sideways. Remember cards like Power Sync.
Yeah, right.
I have to look up what it does every time. Like I know it taps them down, but I just can't remember what happens.
I'll tell you if you do it wrong.
Yeah, good. I just remember it as like the mustard dude. I'm like, oh, this dude like fucked up the mustard sandwich. Mustard dude. So I know. It's like the worst. I don't like the artwork at all. I don't know. It doesn't do it for me, but
honestly, that's another tick mark over in Alpha Alliance's side of things. You get new art for Counterspell and Power Sync, and they're both dope as hell.
Dude, I'm telling you, I do like playing Alpha through alliances. I don't know. I got to get, like I said, we were talking before, but like I got to get people to play it out here. It just, it opens up so much. It's a lot of fun.
And like we saw from the first build, and I think subsequent shots we have here will kind of hammer home this point, but like Rug gets a lot of tools.
I'm not sure which one this is.
I'll talk about this. Mr. Carter Petray up in Chicagoland. He has built this list and run their local Chicago championship with this. Like he's gotten first place 2 years running in this, and it kind of goes against all of the stuff that I've said so far. It's more ATOG centric. He's running 4 strip, 4 factory, no library. He is light, or he's actually not playing anything but 3 Serendib sideboard. And his creature choices are Scrib Sprites, Argothian Pixies, and then 4 ATOGs. And with the ATOGs, he's backing that up with Black Vice and 2 Ankh Mishra. So I really, really like this build. It's not a tempo build. It's more of it's a little closer to the ATOG build. Right. I see he's only playing 2 Chain Lightnings. He's got Sylvan Library side for like against control decks that aren't pressuring you on life, so you can rip 8 life to get an extra 2 cards. But this is a lot more grindy. I haven't ever tried to pilot this. He's a good player and he does it well. I just wanted to present this as another option of how to build this. There's probably an argument to run a Pendelhaven in here too.
Yeah, I was going to say Pendelhaven. It seems extremely streamlined. Like this deck just seems like it would be brutal to play against. It especially in a Rogue Mirror, like it has the advantage. It's not weak to City in a Bottle. It's
right. It's like, so not weak to City in a Bottle. It's playing one.
It's playing one. That's why I was like, this list is a little bit wild.
And then, the dropping Energy Flux for your efficiency case, to your point earlier, for Hurkyl's Recall, just to get an extra pip off of there. It just seems like it does everything at a lower curve than any of the stuff I've ever built.
Yeah, I really like it, and I don't think I would ever play it because this deck feels authentically Carter's. This is his deck.
At this point in time, yeah.
Yeah. I would probably enjoy the hell out of playing this, but I got to tell you, there's just something about like you see a deck and the person who built it or who piloted it, whatever, is tied to that. And you, for me at least, I kind of feel like I don't want to like step on their turf,
Yeah, I dig that. What do you think, Eric? I mean, the Chain Lightnings can be disintegrates. I'll just say that.
Yeah, like I think in these like more aggressive builds, I think Chain Lightning is okay.
It's super low to the ground. I mean,
it's super low.
4 strip, 4 Mishras, like the 8.
The CMC top out is 3. It's 3 for a twist for a Time Twister or a Wheel of Fortune, right? Like everything else is 2 or 1. So it's fairly fucking tight. Like he can probably dump his whole hand like turn 2, turn 3. Like the Like I don't know. My only complaint is the Sylvan's inside, but you're right. Against a control deck, you could pull those 2 extra cards and play them immediately. Yeah, because the curve is so low. So that kind of makes sense.
This deck could technically play Meekstone.
I know. Yeah.
And it's fine.
And it'd be fine. It'd be fine.
I'm trying to think like the Ankhs, like that's got to be great against those taking turns decks or something. And just incidental, it's like a better Mana Barbs. I play Mana Barbs all the time, and it's better here, a better version of that. I can't think of a single card choice other than my Chain Lightning swap case that I like. It just seems like a really good red, green, and blue ATOG build.
Yeah, I can dig this.
And I dig the Pixies and the Sprites. Like those are green cards very close to my heart.
And to your point, there's no black elemental blast, so they stick.
Yeah, they stick.
Block a did to swing back while you draw for the last burn. Like there's a lot to like about Scrib Sprites in this build.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to show it, because it is so different than what people expect out of, okay, you've got 12 Arabian creatures, you're soft to bottle. There we go. Like this is completely new thing.
That's awesome. Good job, Carter.
We're gonna cut this just so nobody else can.
We can't let him.
This will be the one part.
We can't let him believe that we're talking highly about him.
Yeah.
Speaking of people that don't need any more
Oh my god, I
Uh,
can't believe I put this in here. I should have left this out.
All right, I got to hand it to our hometown buddy here, Josh Bergoa. So we've talked about burn, we've talked about tempo. This is the combo build of Rug. I don't know that this is the list that he would have had me to present, but this was from an online event that we hosted back during the pandemic called SummerSlam, and Josh Bergoa wound up doing really well with this. As
Yeah,
far
he
as I
fucked me
remember.
up with this. I played him like round 2 or 3 because I was part of SummerSlam.
Yeah.
It got me good.
So Dave, here's your 2 fireballs.
Yes, heck yes. I love it. I mean,
Um,
that's yes. Sorry.
we're on all
It's exciting.
5 Moxen because look at all the
You gotta
colorless
be.
loss
Yeah.
in the dudes that you're crunching out. But it's a berserk list. You swing in with a creature with at least 3 power, and you hope to get some berserks. So
Awesome.
I don't like the tome. I don't remember what Josh said about it, but I would not play James Day tome.
Yeah, hold on. It's 1, 2. Hold on. I'm trying to count his mana source. We're playing 4. This was a 4-strip one. Yeah, no way. No. Because
Not without mana drain.
Yeah, not without. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we're talking about singleton card choices, right, Eric? But it comes up where it's like, where do I stick my mana drain mana? And if I don't have Mishra's factories, then I feel like, I'm sorry, workshops. Then I feel like it's just, what do I do with it? But
so let me actually transition to another kind of theory that I have not run down, but we've talked about here in Nashville, and I don't think is necessarily wrong. Go back to the burn list and think about it with berserks in mind. Let's say these psionic blasts are berserks.
okay.
No, don't do that. The tempo build. That's what I'm after.
The one with counter spells.
Yeah. So think of this. Take out the psionic blasts. Take out the chain lightnings.
Okay.
In their place, 4 giant growth.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that stuff, Casey. I've been finding that most often giant growth often says counter target lightning bolt. and it's better than avoid fate at that.
And what more do you want out of a deck that is playing a tempo game? A 1 mana counter spell for the thing that kills your dude.
Yes.
Again, I haven't had the guts to try that, but it's an option.
To your, like, going back to your control magic conversation, there are times when technically berserking a Savannah Lions that's opposed you could be correct. It feels
so bad. It feels so bad.
Yeah, it does. I've done it though, because sometimes you just have to. And I still lost that game. It doesn't matter, but doesn't matter.
But yeah, going back to Josh's build, I really like the berserk build of Rug. I think he added black at some point for Darrellor. Wormwood Treefolk, I think, was bad, according to him. There were some capital C choices here.
Casey, I would probably drop the Fireballs and play Giant Growth here. I just because there's times where I think you're going to sink your mana into a dude here. And so, I like to have things to do with my mana. To you were saying you like to be brutally efficient. I don't like wasted mana. And I don't like passing the turn untapped unless I'm holding counterspell. So probably signal to all future opponents. But
I would think Josh probably feels the same, and that's how the James Day tome wound up in the deck.
I mean, there's nothing better when you get that online. It's great. You're like, yeah, I'm winning this game.
Actually, now that I look at this, I'm going to have to make fun of Josh a little bit because he's playing 2 Fireballs and a Brain Geyser, which hasn't come up in my list yet. I thought about Brain Geyser, but what he doesn't have in here is a Mana Drain.
Yeah, I was saying that I would like to have that next to James Day. I don't Brain Geyser, let's talk about it. Eric, would you play Brain Geyser if you were splashing for blue? I would not,
Now
because
the
I
double blue is
feel
too hard to cast.
it's the double blue. Like, I mean, you're going to run it for the counterspell builds, but even then, you probably just want a another counterspell to
Yeah.
protect your dudes or have some interaction because of the tempo game.
You have 2 draw 7s, right? You have Twister, you have Wheel.
Yeah.
So I don't think you necessarily need the Geyser. I think that would be better served as something else, like you said, either counterspell,
Fireball.
whatever, a third fireball. Like we're talking about his list, but he like fucked me up when we played SummerSlam with this. But
I just like all the big ass creatures. They're beautiful.
Now let me add something. Oh yeah, no, the creatures. Yeah, let's go into that. Then I'll add something.
I think he was
So,
just fucking with
what he
people.
said.
Like he's like, oh, what if I played a Stang? Like what if I just play a Stang?
Here's the thing, man. Staying is good against Savannah Lion decks because you pay your mana and you have 2 creatures now.
Yeah,
It's true.
Swords to
Two-headed
Plowshares
giant,
is
very
weak.
cool.
The
Yeah.
Jin seems a little bit much because you're sacrificing 2 islands. He has 8 islands in the deck. Seems a little much.
9. There's
9.
one on.
Sorry.
Nine.
Oh, there's a lonely basic on the very end there. Seems risky.
So talking about Staying getting balled by swords, Mountain Yeti, protection from swords.
Yeah.
I understand playing that. It's the Camwell special. Fuck you, swords. But
That comes up though. Mount Walk comes up too though, because there's a lot of red in the format, and so getting in there for 3 that can be a thing. Ship and Dragon. I mean, the iconic
easy
art
play.
of the youth. I mean, just beautiful to be able to run a deck that plays it. I mean, one of these days I'm just going to build something that just plays 4 Shivens. What is the altars on the left? Is that Dibs, Casey?
Yes, he had Anson revise his or alter his revised Serendipity to 4 different colored Anson alter dibs. Like, it's a really cool set of Serendipity. I got to tell you.
That's awesome. Back when Anson still did that, that's awesome.
And for a guy that has a set of Summer Swords to Plowshares, he bitches about not having Arabian Nights dibs.
Arabian Nights dibs.
So this was his consolation.
Yeah,
and it's
right.
pretty cool. Another thing that I want to bring up here, and this is definitely a Josh thing that I really dig. Every time he berserks someone out for the kill, he makes them sign the berserk.
Yep.
Oh,
so that's what all those SIGs are.
See, man, just killing.
So I wanted to go back. Eric, you said something that sparked a consideration for me. You said that in the tempo deck, I've got draw 7s or whatever. I don't play draw 7s in the tempo deck because this is a 1-for-1 attrition deck that I'm trying to eke out incremental advantage with, and I don't want to refill their hand. I don't know if that's wrong or not, but
I think it is the danger, right, of the Twister and the Wheel. Unless you can turn one like Twister somebody, which I think is like the most fun. I mean, it doesn't happen often, but it is definitely fun. I don't necessarily disagree with that. If you're basically just trying to Delver people, right, and just like eke out incremental advantage over turns 2 through 4, then I think you're probably right, because you don't want to like reload some counter burn deck turn 5 and get fucked.
Right. This is old school Delver, and you don't want to reload like Lion Dib Bolt with its Swords to Plowshares either. So
I'm trying to think.
That's why this is like this.
I'm trying to think, Casey, of what I do in those kind of builds, and the only thing that I can think to add is recall. There's times when I basically want a second regrowth to turn my crappy land into another, burn spell or something, or a counter spell again. That might be a fringe case in which you might try that. But there's been very few times when I play that. I usually play the draw 7s and burn. But
for me, like my tier of power cards to add is like obviously Ancestral and Time Walk, obviously Moxen and Lotus. But then we have the corner case of like, okay, when am I going to add library. When am I going to add the 2-draw 7s? I'm probably not going to add just one of them. I'm probably going to add 2 if I have the ability to. If I'm not in red, okay, I lose wheel. Then we have, when do you add Brain Geyser? It's not power, but it's kind of the same restricted consideration. When do you add recall? And that's kind of my progression of like how I'm picking the team, basically. And so often Brain Geyser and recall get just left out in the cold.
Yeah. They're a little tough to cast. That's the issue, I feel like. But for what I said earlier, it's just the double blue. I think here it's interesting. You've got like 7, colorless sources, or colorless lands. That's just a tough balance. And I also don't have like any rhyme or reason on that. Generally, I do think it falls along your tempo plan. You want to have more strips than Mishras.
Yeah.
But it's not written in stone. And I play the draw 7s when I'm playing more burn and less counter spells. But I mean that's just general rules of thumb, not anything hard. I don't know, Eric. What's your thoughts on the colorless lands? Fuck library. I mean,
so yeah. So like this is what I struggle with, even playing like just 2-color decks. Is like I use MTG curve calculator, whatever. I use a hypergeometric calculator, right, to figure out how many land sources I need to be able to cast my stuff at like 90%.
Mhm.
Like so like for instance, like the decks we were talking about last time, where I was like, do I play, like, I think 19 is probably like the absolute bare number of actual physical lands that tap for mana. It's probably like 19. And then you can add or subtract based on how many accelerants you put in the deck. So for me, like, this deck would fucking drive me crazy, because I know for a fact that you have to get lucky on your land draws, and you can definitely get double stripped and you're probably fucking done. But
yeah,
it's happened. Oh, dude, I mean, yes. I just turned one of my decks into 22 lands because I've been thinking about it for the last 2 fucking days about like, oh, do I play 21 or 22? Not the point. The point here is, I think that is this is like, which side of the deck do you want to draw, right? Or which side of the deck do you draw? Do you draw like Kirdabe Taiga Strip, or are you going to draw like Ernie Counterspell 2 blue land?
Factory.
Yeah, factory. So, you know what I mean? And it gives you 2 game plans, which is nice because like post board game 2, game 3, you have like more that you can flex onto, whether you want to go more aggro or more control with your sideboard options. What I would like to ask, or what we haven't talked about, is we've seen the card, but City in a Bottle, specifically with this deck, right? Because you're running 12 targets. More than that, but like base deck, 4 Kirdaves, 4 Dibs, 4 Ernies, right?
No, it's just, well, this one's got three Ernems, so this is 12. This is right at 12.
Yeah, of course you got the library.
Oh, sorry, 13.
And 1 city, right? Yeah, like how do you guys? This is really a question for both of you guys. How do you guys deal with the City in a Bottle? Like, I know, like, at least out here, people don't play it on the main, but you're definitely gonna see game 2, game 3.
I kind of don't worry about it until it happens. And
okay.
The choice, so here's the choice is, do you want to get blown out by City in a Bottle, or do you want to hedge against it? So this is a deck with a lot of hedging against it, with 5 counter spells and 4 main deck creatures that are not affected by it, and then 3 more side, as well as your factories. So I could see going up on factories to hedge against City in a Bottle. Now, something Josh played in his sideboard as a one of is Artifact Blast. And I am, again, this is another one of those things I'm not courageous enough to actually run. What happens if you hedge against City in a Bottle by playing 3 Artifact Blast side?
Yeah. What if I played 2 of them main?
Yeah, I mean that's another kind of tempo consideration. I remember playing against Josh Bergoa. We were sitting at my dining room table, And I think I had a turn one, land go. He said turn one, land Lotus, sack Lotus, and I stopped him because I artifact blasted his Lotus, and he was crushed, and it felt great.
Yeah.
So
I-
those
yeah.
artifact blast opens that up too.
Yeah. I also don't worry about it as much, Eric. I feel like you got to make them have it sometimes. I mean, obviously, all of my stuff is extremely aggressive, right? So I'm like, show me that you've got a main deck, city in the bottle. But second game, because I think it's more likely to come out of the board, I'll game plan. And then
Okay.
usually it's not. I've experimented with artifact blast, and I do like those corner cases where you get somebody's moxen and you've got to strip mine, and you're like, get wrecked. But I just generally like scavenger folk better.
Okay.
Because I won't overplay to the board. Like I'll just be like Tiger Curd Ape. All right. Like then I'll try and get up on my counts of scavenger folk because I play Pendlehaven, and then I'll just like, okay, let me see what you got, and then try and slowly not overcommit to the board. Probably something I still need to work on. But
Well, I really like that 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 line of thought, and that's a hard lesson that I had to learn too about not overplaying. And sometimes you are just Delver and you're riding your Curd Ape, into battle 10 times, and then that's it. But that's why the tempo list that I have plays an Earthquake side, and Josh is playing one here too. So, I mean, sometimes people overextend, and sometimes it can really be a blowout.
I don't know. The other thing is just not be like build around it, like to that list that Casey had where he was like on 4 Argothian, 4 or like some amount of Mishras. Like that seems like you could get blown. Somebody could drop a city a bottle against this. Like I envision your perfect curve, right? Case where it's like Taiga, Argothian, Serendib, and then you get to swing with your Curd Ape twice, and then perhaps they blow up your dib, but you still got in for 4, and you're left with an Argothian Pixie and potentially a Mishra's. Well, then you can lean into your burn, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, like I guess it's an effective answer. I don't want to say that it's not, but then again, there's a lot of decks that have a lot of weaknesses, but I feel like it's more manageable than others. And especially if you're thoughtful about City of Brass, I think it's up to you guys. But I don't 3 or sometimes it depends. It depends. If I'm splashing black, then I'm on fourth. A fourth City of Brass, and then it's like double city, and then you get wrecked. But the more I feel like the more City of Brasses you play, the better that card is against you.
Yeah, because you're so heavily dependent on colored mana at all times. And I know that kind of sounds silly because we're all playing decks that are dependent on colored mana, but this archetype just in itself, it just feels like it needs more colored mana than any other deck. And I don't think that's true, but I think it just feels that way sometimes to me.
I agree. You're
but-
low to the ground, Casey. Like you've got to get that red when you need it to get the spell off. You need the double blue to counter this in the bottle. So yeah, it's just you feel like it's much tighter than it probably is. But
Yeah, and the thing about bottle is sometimes I kind of just don't care. Like I talk a big game about like, I don't know, bottle me, whatever. We'll play another game. But my builds have gravitated a lot more lately to having 4 Argothian Pixies in them and to having at least 1 counterspell in them. And it's just one of those things that's like you kind of have to have something on the off chance that it comes up that you can deal with it. Main deck artifact removal is another thing in the burn deck. That's why I mentioned the 1 shatter in the Quicksilver list. I'm not playing it, but that's something I've seen that the folks over in Europe would do, and it's purely a hedge against bottle or whatever big artifact they need to deal with. but it's that one card that makes you feel like, okay, I've got a plan game one just in case, whether or not it's actually going to show up.
Interesting. Okay. All right. That's the only what was I thinking about? I for whatever reason I feel like that there's going to be an increase in bottles main here, like in general, like, oh, what's an old school metal look like? But I mark my words, there'll be an increase in bottles main for, let's just say, over the next 6 months. That's a bet. If anybody wants to take me on that, fine. But we can figure out what we're going to bet.
I
Okay.
mean, Carter's list could probably play bottom main, right, Casey? I don't see
Yeah,
any reason why that list wouldn't.
He's got 3 cities, or 3 city abreast, yeah, but otherwise he's fine.
Yeah, I'd probably drop an ink here and just throw a city of the bottle in Maine. I'd just see if you could get some people. There's enough Arabian Nights played in other lists that, it's effective against Juice. Which this deck would have an issue with.
Yeah.
I guess city in a bottle is what he's probably, he still needs that. So because of his mana, it's probably so tight that he probably has to have city. And so what's he boarding? I don't know. I'd probably keep a non-city in the city of brass.
I need to ask him about this the next time I talk to him. But what's funny is, I'm used to seeing ATOG lists with like all 5 Moxen.
Mm-hmm.
He's not playing the Jet.
Yeah, it's too tight.
Huh.
He's got 8 colorless sources. I get it.
Like, it's too tight on mana, and also he's at 60. And so what are you dropping for a Jet? You can't drop any of these cards because they all do more things than a Jet does.
Yeah. Like, I would make the argument that you could drop the Soul Ring, but it casts. You could go double Vice. You could go Ankh. Or Pearl,
would be what I would look for first. But again, you're right. Like, what?
I'm thinking he's got swords or something, That's interesting.
Anyway, I just noticed that, and I thought it was funny. And I have a little bit of a compulsion to, like, if I'm playing off-color Moxen, I'm probably gonna try to find a way to put some kind of colored card in there for it. Like when I know we're not talking about Urnham-Geddon, but I played a 5-color Urnham-Geddon list once that was a ton of fun, and it was based kind of on Paul De Silva's ever-evolving list, and I think it was for Tutor Twist, and then I think I just added a Fireball, just like Fireball and Wheel.
Well, it's a good conversation to have. If you were to splash a 4th color into Rug, would you go black or white first?
I would never do it. Actually, I take that back because I did it with the Alpha Alliance's deck. It was a 5-color list. But for straight EC, I would never splash it. And I will hype up Svante Landgraf over in Sweden. He's been doing a running blog series on his ever-evolving Rug list. And I think here recently, within the last 3 posts or so, he's talked about splashing black in a Rug list. And I thought he didn't care for it. Anyway, I just the man is too tight, and you're not getting a lot out of it, I don't think. I thought it was fine here in this, but I don't know. It just feels different in 94.
Yeah. Demonic Tutor's tempting. Tutor. But
it is. And Mindtwist is a blowout on its own. So
yeah, I mean, if I was going to splash black, it would just be for the Tutor. I don't think the Mindtwist is worth it.
Yeah.
What list is this?
This is just another Alpha 3 Alliance, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I played against, this is another guy from here, Stephen Bush. Stephen is awesome. He's an incredible Magic player. And he put this together. I would make a couple of changes. I would play more Gorilla Shaman's main deck. But what I want to point out is he's also using Black Vice. but he's using some hot tech from Alliances in the Arcane Denial.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's a good idea.
So if you don't know, Arcane Denial is 1 blue and a colorless counter target spell.
He
On
also
the
has
next,
3 draw 7s, Casey.
Oh, did he play the
Diminishing
alliance with
returns.
diminishing returns? Fuck.
yeah. Now, I'll talk about that next, but
Okay,
there's a
sorry.
neat little trick with Arcane Denial and Black Vice. So Arcane Denial says on your next up on the next upkeep, you draw a card
Says your
to
opponent.
replace your counter, and then the opponent draws 2 cards. Because of the active player, non-active player order, if you have a Black Vice and you have just countered their spell with an Arcane Denial, you can stack your triggers where the Black Vice will go on the stack first, and then the Arcane Denial draw trigger will go. And so they'll go and draw their 2 cards, then take the Vice damage with their extra 2 cards from the denial.
That's pretty slick, Steven.
Yeah. I don't care for diminishing returns, but at the same time, it's a cool card that you get in Alliances. And why would you not play it?
I think if you're going to play the diminishing returns, you have to play the Ice Age Regrowth. What's that one called? It's more mana, but
Forgotten Lore.
yeah,
Nature's
because then
Moon?
you can
Forgotten.
Forgotten Lore.
Forgotten Lore.
Let me pull up the old keyboard here. But you can pull multiples out of your graveyard. So if you diminishing returns, it's a little bit of a advantage for using it.
I like Forgotten Lore more in a combo list. This kind of feels combo-y, but I think a better slot for a Forgotten Lore, or instead of a Forgotten Lore, I think you want a business spell, because you're not always guaranteed to have drawn a draw 7 or something. Like what you're saying is kind of how they used Mystical Tutor in 96.
Moxes. So that just makes you're going after the Moxes with the monkey, right?
Yeah.
Case most of the time to get your Black Vice to be better. Okay.
You can use it to do that. If you're not playing Black Vice and you're on more of a tempo build, then it is another. It's basically the, Strip Mine can't take care of Moxen, and so this is the other side of that.
That's awesome.
If you've got a Mox Monkey online and you've got them stripped off of a color, it's an even tougher row to hoe. Hopefully. And then your Black Vices get better and they can't arrange a threat. So
Yeah, I mean, if I have something critical, it's the Sylvan Library for all the reasons we've already discussed.
I mean, here, I don't remember what he placed with this. It was like 3rd or 4th, I think. It's a very good list, and he's a very good player. And like he's playing all the great stuff in the sideboard. Tormod's Crypts are kind of required in Alpha Alliances because of the Reanimator situation.
Yeah.
But allow me to point your attention to the left side.
Is he playing Stormbind?
He's playing Stormbind.
Fucking
I
Stormbind.
wouldn't, if I am on a green-red list in Alpha Alliances or even just 95, I'm not leaving home without 2 Stormbinds somewhere in the 75.
Yeah.
It is so incredibly good.
But isn't there? You need another card for the combo, right? It's Stormbind plus. I thought there was another card to play with it.
Howling Mine?
Yeah.
Howling. So
yeah, something like that.
I was in a situation in one of my games here a month ago where I think I was at pretty low life, but the opponent was on a bunch of X1 creatures, and we had traded, and then I landed a Stormbind and got it to stick. And so I had mana, but I was drawing things like lands and things that weren't going to win me the game. So I was just paying 2, pitching the land, killing their dude, or doing them 2, turn after turn after turn. And I didn't really need a Howling Mine to capitalize on that. Because with Stormbind, you pay 2, you pitch a card at random, and you deal 2 to anything.
Right.
So this is another one of those permanent sources of damage that I like having in a rug list. So in A2A, you can get by on your 12 being Black Vice, Kurt Dib, Black Vice, Dib, Urnum. And here, personally, I would probably drop the diminishing returns, and I play 61, so I'd add 1. I'd play a third Mox Monkey, and then a Stormbind main deck.
I'd drop the Sylvan, play a Stormbind for sure. I agree with getting rid of diminishing returns and play the other monkey. And I think the rest of the list is like chef's kiss.
Pretty solid. Yeah.
I think it's
now the other thing I kind of consider is, what's your creature base? Do you want to go Kurt Dib? Do you want to go Kurt Dib Urnum? Do you want to go Dib Urnum? And all of that is just how fast do you want your deck to be? So
yep.
There's no wrong answer. It's just which choice.
Yeah, I mean, diminishing returns is nice if you know that you need to get them back up to 7 and past the turn. Like it's
diminishing returns. Unfortunately, diminishing returns says the opponent may draw up to 7,
right.
Or they have to draw up to 7.
Well, you got me there. But you could also get burned too. I think it's a cool card. It's nice to be able to draw 7 and then find your Black Vices still, and it's cool. It's a cool thing. I haven't played with it much outside of combo builds, but I could see it being kind of useful in Alpha Alliance's road.
Yeah, and talking about it another way, Time Twister, you draw 7, they draw 4. Like, that's good.
Yeah.
Right. That's right.
Okay, you have to exile 10 cards before you do it. Whatever.
Yeah.
In this deck, who cares? Yeah.
Yeah.
At least some of the 7 you draw is going to be burned in a threat, right? Like, it's still awesome. All
right, boys. All right, last deck, and then I gotta go.
All right.
Do real life things.
Whose is this? Oh, this
is Dave's.
Yeah, this is what I played at the Desert Twisters event, right, guys? So after I shit on library, after I criticized library all night, you can
see one in here. I see one in
library. And library, Sylvan Library, so that we're clear. It was terrible all day, and all day I wished it was literally anything else. Specifically an earthquake would probably be the one thing. But other than that, here I've splashed for black, Casey, to get my demonic tutor. And the reason I did that was because that lets me play with 2 channels. And
because that's what this deck is. You're on channel Fireball.
How many black sources did you play? 1, 2, 5, 6 black sources. Okay.
7 if you count the jet, and 8 if you count Lotus. So.
Oh, I didn't see the Lotus. Yeah. Okay.
So it was fine. Oh, I'm sorry, 7 because I didn't play a Force City of Brass because I didn't want to get blown out to City in a bottle. But
there it is.
I thought it was fine. Also, if you notice, like, it's got a transformational sideboard into Power Artifact. So I boarded out all of my creatures and boarded in Power Artifact against all of the Wrath of God decks, game 2. And Demonic Tutor lets me find the missing piece of the combo in Power Artifact. So
that's clever. I like that.
That was
you got people with that too, as I remember.
All day, like, people, one of the best advice that I've gotten in old school was from, Ben. And he said people board for all the time for the deck they saw game 1 instead of the deck they'll face game 2. And so I always loved transformational sideboards because people were boarding in all of their removal, and I just boarded out all my creatures, and then
play a different deck game 2.
Yeah, and then the Mishras were almost always there to defend while I assembled the combo. So I had a blast with this. I would do this again. Obviously, I try and play weird, spicy stuff. Because I never got to play the Serendib Dijin. Like, I went out and procured the big 2 blue, 2 of any other color for this tournament to add to my collection. I never saw him, never got him out. I did,
really?
however. Yeah,
that's a bummer.
I know. I still have yet to cast that card, but I definitely got like I got Channel Fireball off 3 times on the day, and it won me many a game.
That's a
So-
That's
good
why
day.
between you, yes, that is now why I'm like playing. I'm gonna play Channel Fireball on the next time, just to see if I can fucking do it to somebody.
Also, I have to have the Kurt Ape that Nick View did. I have to do a public apology for butchering his name last podcast, Eric. So
It's fine.
Meow.
I
Meow.
publicly
fine.
apologize. If I just butchered it again, I publicly apologize again.
How was it that you said it?
Kurt one. Nick View, isn't that right? It
I
was-
don't know.
I
Okay.
will let him consider it and then snail mail you back.
Yeah.
I'll have him on just to say his name, and then I'll just cut it into a clip so that
Yeah, you'll
whenever
just, like,
somebody
double
needs to say it, I'll just
click
double
it.
click it, and so it can just like go in there. I think that actually might be the
Listen,
solution.
David Craig. But he did this awesome Kurt Ape for me after he balled me in one of the tournaments. So I had a blast playing this. I would play it again. I mean, probably not with, it was a one-shot try and gimmick to try and shove. I've been experimenting, Casey, with Power Artifact in an aggro setting. So I'm trying to play aggro Power Artifact and trying different ways I can do it. I played that in the Battle of the Alamo. And so, this was my attempt to do it without lions involved.
So leaving Power Artifact is another thing that I just never have gone deep on. So I won't focus too much on that, but I want to ask, so you didn't see your Serendip Djinn. What did you think about the Whirling Dervishes?
Okay, so it's a pet card. So let's get that out of the way.
It was good for that. It was good for that tournament for sure.
But that tournament, it turned out to be the perfect metagame
Yep.
choice because I played against I think two heavily black decks. One was mono black, and the other was like black with a black base with a red splash for basically troll disco. And it was great. Like I just sat there and blocked stuff all day while my flyers got in for beats and then pushed through with Pendelhaven for, counters when I needed to. The card's great. I prefer it to Pixies in a vacuum. But I don't face a lot of I think I've just gotten lucky with that card choice.
Here's a
I haven't
spicy
faced
take.
a lot of missions. So.
In a EC or in a 4-strip environment, I think Dervish is the play. If you're playing a 1-strip environment like Atlantic, I think you play the Pixies.
That's generally what I've come down to too, Case. That's
I can see,
hot takes.
I can see how you got there. Yeah.
It's because mono black, dude. I played 3 mono black decks at the Strip Mine Express, and then at the Seattle event, I played 2 or 3 mono black decks as well. And I probably brought in Dervishes like more games than I didn't, and I should have just played them main because they fit well against mono black, which you're going to see a lot of, and an open field, and then they also work well against the Abyss if people are still playing that, which I'm assuming that at some point they are. So
Yeah.
I joke that it gives me a crutch because I'm a bad player against the mono black decks in the Swiss. Like it gives me a little bit of a leg up on that, whereas Pixies doesn't. I played Brain Geyser here too, obviously as like the 9th win condition once I boarded into Power Artifacts. So.
Yeah. So what were your cuts for going into Power Monolith? Do you just cut all 14 of your creatures and then board in everything but the boomerang?
And all 14 in a strip mine. And then just board everything in. So every game I was boarding out 15 cards and boarding in 15. And everybody's like, what the heck? Yeah. Yeah, that's because I wanted to maximize not making choices and drinking beer that day too. So
That's good.
Yeah.
So what happened? Did you channel Fireball more people than beers that you drank?
No.
Well, sorry, not channel Fireball. Maybe so beers that you drank versus kills with either channel Fireball or the Power Monolith combo.
Oh, or Fireball. That's a toss up. Boy, I'd have to think. I probably killed more people with fireballs, but it was close.
But it was
Got
close.
a beer that day. That was
How'd
like
you?
the first tournament we had after lockdown. I was super stoked.
Yes.
Like, so there was a lot of pent up excitement.
Yeah,
Casey.
It was
I-
exciting to get out there.
We've had our fair share of ragers since things opened back up and we all got vaccinated. So we're back in it. We're back in the mix.
Yeah. Joyce says, if I could do it over, I really didn't like Sylvan Library. It was good it's good in Power Monolith, but
Yeah, I think it's appropriate there too. Like,
I should have.
I would play it.
I would, dude, if I had to do this over, that Boomerang in the board should be main and Library should be in the board. For all the reasons that Casey likes Control Magic in a tempo game.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. I've said my piece. But
All right.
I had fun. I want to play more Rug after this, like just straight Rug.
Yeah, and I
after
want to say something about like Rug in the metagame itself and like all the
Okay.
different metagames. Because I feel like it doesn't show up as much as it should. It's a really good deck and you can do it so many different ways, but I just feel like the Savannah Lions Dib deck kind of gets a lot more play. The ATOG decks, all manner of shops and whatnot. But I really think that people sleep on Rug. And I think the Europeans have, they've kind of got it on lockdown. Like they've got the Quicksilver list and they have the old school Swedish lists that are, pretty well balanced in that environment as well. And I would love to see Rug, like classic Quicksilver Rug burn, make a comeback here in Atlantic, in more EC events, and in, over there on the West Coast too.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep getting pounded by shops over here.
Kudos.
Shops on shops on shops.
I agree, Casey. I like playing it. It's a fun deck. It's not weak to Earthquake. So, it's Lightning Bolt and City are still going to be an issue, but the deck has answers. I think you play it. If you're thinking about Lion Dib Bolt, give Rug a try.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Now, talking about being prepared for shops, that's why I have 3 Energy Flux. But you play against shops more often than I do, Eric. And
but I lose against shops more often than everybody in this chat.
So that's the question about what is it that you lack against shops that would fit well in a Rug deck?
In a Rug for shops, I think that the Energy Flux, I think they're prepared for your normal hate pieces, right? So I think your shops player is prepared for Blood Moon, which I actually don't really think is a really good hate piece against shops. Energy Flux, I think they're prepared for that because that's like your main line of defense, right? So what I have purchased recently for an upcoming tournament in October is,
show me the double red pips.
You're goddamn right I did. You're fucking right I did.
Yeah.
I bought a Shatterstorm, like a real Shatterstorm. I think this, and then 3. So you just have to overload your artifacts, and I think Shatterstorm, if you can get it off, is a good 2, 3, or more for 1. If you're over 3, I think you're probably just have lost that game already. But I was also, that's why I was talking about like main deck artifact stuff, right? So this is a red-green deck. It's the one we've talked about ad nauseum. But I'm thinking about 2 artifact blast main. Okay. And I here's my argument. It gets stuff on the stack. So like which is the whole point. So if somebody casts a City in the Bottle, you can get it on the stack, right? If somebody casts a Trike, which is a big deal for a red-green deck that plays basically 1/1s and 2/3s, you can get them on the stack. What it doesn't do, and what I'm relying on my strip mines to do for me, is handle factories, right? I think here on my list, this either 2 artifact blasts or it's 2 scavenger folks. and I'm playing like 15 creatures right now main. It's like 4 Ernies, 4 Script Sprites, 4 Curt Apes, 3 Elves. 22 lands. I cut 1 Disintegrate and the City of Brass, and I'm just playing like 6 of each basic, 4 Taigas, 1 of each Jewels, Soul Ring, shit like that.
Yeah.
It gets Chaos Orb too. Artifact
And
Blast
Chaos
is great on that because then they can't, activate
Or-
in response to your remove.
Or like like if you really want to like try and tempo the motherfuckers, you can get the Mox turn 1. Because people
Yeah.
what I've seen
Force
is
strip.
people people don't respect the Force Spike, and they're definitely not going to respect the Artifact Blast.
Right.
And they'll play into what open red. They'll be like, yeah, whatever, dude. And I'll be like, Artifact Blast. I would like to do that just once, and I think my day will be made. But I think honestly the right answer is probably 2 Scavenger Folk. But I think I'm going to play him just to play get him games.
Casey, Eric said something that's really important, which is that the shops players really are ready for permanent based removal.
Yeah.
Like they're playing disc, they've got disc activate Hercules, like
Yeah.
they've got answers for your permanent base to the point where you have to like have 2 answers to protect your permanent based answer. And that's when I think, to Carter's point, Hercules Recall might not be a bad point if you're playing blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that
so-
would be good.
I mean, to be honest, thinking back on my tempo list and even the burn list, 2 Shatterstorms and a Hercule, or the other way around, might not be bad.
Yeah.
Like
So-
I only have to worry about it like round 1, maybe round 2 before I get bumped down to my normal sitting area, right? But like that round 1, round 2, like I want to give him a show.
Yeah,
I want to give him a show.
That's right, baby.
That's kind of my thought process. Like I know I'm not bringing the best deck, but I'd like to at least be like, all right, like I'd like to go like 2-1 in that match, not 2-0. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. No, I think green red has legs, and I think you're doing it just about as well as anybody can.
All right, boys. What else? Anybody else want to talk about anything else?
I don't, other than to say, Casey, it was awesome seeing you. Thanks for hosting SummerSlam during the pandemic. That was like my first foray into like internet, like Magic. So thank you for that. And thanks for everything you do at Music City, man.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's not just me. We have a ton of people that make everything happen. So
everybody at Music City.
Except Josh.
Right.
All right. I'm gonna put all those photos up on some type of website, so they'll all be there. I think what's gonna happen is I'm probably just gonna start a website for this podcast so that people can like go and do stuff there, and that'll make more sense. Anyhow, that's a future project. Thanks, guys, for coming on. I will hopefully see you guys in real life seas at some point.
Yeah.
I'll hit you up in the text messages about that. We'll figure something out.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
See you guys.
See you.